You think you know the story of World War II, right? Allies fighting a common enemy. Well, what if I told you about a day when two of the biggest allies, the US and the Soviet Union, turned their guns on each other? We're about to dive into one of the most forgotten, shocking stories of the war, a time when allies became deadly enemies in the sky. I mean, how does that even happen? It sounds impossible. You have two of the world's superpowers, they're supposed to be on the same team, and yet they're locked in a full-on dogfight. So what on earth went so catastrophically wrong? That's the mystery we're gonna try to solve. Alright, let's set the scene. The date is November 7, 1944. Picture this. You're high over Yugoslavia, flying with a squadron of American P-38 Lightnings. Your mission, it sounds pretty straightforward. Find the Germans, destroy the Germans, simple, right? But what started as a routine hunt for the enemy? Well, it was about to end in a way no one could have ever seen coming. Okay. So leading this whole flight is a guy named Colonel Clarence Edwinson. And as they're flying, he spots something down below a German steam train. I mean, that's just too good a target to ignore. He gives the order and the whole squadron just dives down for the attack. But as they pull back up, boom! The sky just erupts around them with those black puffs of German anti-aircraft fire, flat. And just like that, everything goes wrong. The German guns are dead on. One of the P-38s gets hit and it just bursts into flames. You can imagine hearing that desperate voice over the radio, "I'm hit, I'm going down." And then just silence. Colonel Edwinson actually watches the fireball slam into a hillside. No parachute, nothing, and you can bet he is absolutely filled with rage. So Colonel Edwinson has just lost one of his men, and he is seeing red. He is laser focused on one thing, revenge. And as his squadron is roaring over the Serbian mountains, they spot something that looks like the perfect target to unleash all that anger. And this, right here, is where the story takes an absolutely devastating turn. He looks down into this valley and what does he see? It's like it's straight out of his mission briefing. A long convoy of military vehicles and airfield right next to it. To him, there's zero doubt. These have to be the guys, the Germans who just shut down his pilot. Without a second thought, he gives the order to attack. And this is where the fatal misunderstanding happens. It's almost unbelievable what the Americans saw and what was actually there were two totally different things. They thought they saw a German convoy, but nope, it was a column of their Soviet allies. They saw a German Luftwaffe airfield. It was actually a Red Army base. And those enemy fighters they were about to engage, yeah, those were Allied Soviet Yaks. And if that wasn't tragic enough, get this down on the ground. The Soviet soldiers weren't even preparing for a fight. They were celebrating. It was the anniversary of the October Revolution. They were singing, flying their flags. So when they first see these planes, they're probably smiling, waving, thinking, "Hey, look, it's our American friends." And then the P-30s dive. You can just imagine that joy turning instantly to sheer panic and confusion. What happens next is just absolute chaos. You've got guys on the ground, guys in the air, and here's the crazy part. Both sides are convinced they're fighting the Germans. So it starts as a tragic friendly fire incident is about to explode into a full-blown, ferocious dogfight between two of the most powerful air forces on the planet. So the Americans dive down, strafing the airfield that's just blasting it with machine gun fire. But the Soviets on the ground aren't just taking it. They fight back hard with their own AW guns. And bam! They take down a second American P-38. Meanwhile, the Red Army pilots are scrambling, sprinting to their Yak fighters to get into the air as they're literally just taking off. The Americans are all over them. But the Soviets are tough. They fight back and immediately shoot down a third American plane in just a matter of minutes. The losses on both sides are just piling up. Let's zoom in for a second because this isn't just about planes. It's about people. Two of the first Soviet pilots to get airborne are Lieutenant Krivonijic and his wingman, a younger guy, Junior Lieutenant Shapulia. The second they're up, they are in a desperate fight for their lives, totally outnumbered by the American P-308s. You could almost hear Krivonijic yelling into his radio, screaming warnings to his wingman as these American fighters are closing in on. And the tragedy here just gets deeper. Krivonijic, this amazing pilot, actually manages to shoot down an American P-38, saving his wingman's life. But in the total chaos of the battle, Krivonijic's own plane gets hit, not by an American, but by anti-aircraft fire from his own guys on the ground. Can you believe that? And just a few moments later, his friend Shapulia is overwhelmed by the P-308s and shot down. Just like that, two heroes gone, lost in all the confusion. So the battle is just this swirling mess in the sky. It's a total melee. More Soviet fighters go down, but reinforcements are coming. And it's the guy leading this new wave of Soviet planes who is about to figure out what's really going on and change everything. Okay, so this guy, Captain Alexander Koltanov, he's racing to the fight now. The message he got was that he was responding to an attack by German FW-189s, but Koltanov is a pro. He knows the FW-189 is a slow, clunky recon plane. It doesn't fight like this. So as he gets closer and closer to the battle, he starts to realize something is deeply, deeply wrong here. And then he sees them, and they are not German recon planes. No way. He sees that unmistakable iconic twin boom shape of the American P-38 Lightning. And in that instant, he gets it. He understands the horrible mistake. He completely aborts his attack and starts desperately trying to signal the Americans. He pulls up right alongside them, wagging his wings back and forth, trying to show them the big red stars, the Allied symbol painted on his wing. Finally, after what must have felt like an eternity, Koltanov manages to get right up next to the American leader, Colonel Edwinson. Edwinson looks over, sees the Soviet plane, and then he sees the red star. You have to imagine his blood just running cold in that one single moment. A horrifying dread just washes over him. He looks at the other planes he's been shooting at and he sees the red star on every single one. The truth hits him like a ton of bricks and he just screams into his radio, "Holy shit, cease fire, cease fire." They are Soviets and just like that, the shooting stops. The American P-38s basically turn tail and get out of there as fast as they can. The battle itself might be over, but you can bet the fallout, both diplomatic and historical, was really just getting started. So what happens next? Well, things get very, very quiet. This whole incident was hushed up so fast and so thoroughly that some researchers think the full American side of the story might stay classified for 100 years. And you can see why this thing immediately threatened to become a massive diplomatic crisis. At first, the Soviets thought it might have been a deliberate attack. Eventually, the US sent a formal letter basically saying our bad. It was a terrible mistake. And they explained how the misidentification happened. And over the years, the Soviet side, they've been pretty open, releasing their version of what went down. But the American side, it's a completely different story. The official information is incredibly hard to find. A lot of people are convinced the full detailed American account is still locked away in a classified file somewhere. And that leaves us right here with this huge, lingering question. We know the basic story of what happened on that awful day, but because the official American records are so scarce, so much is still in the shadows. So why? Was it just to avoid massive embarrassment? Was it to keep from blowing up the alliance with the Soviets right in the middle of the war? Or was it to cover up some kind of even bigger intelligence failure? Why the full story of one of World War II's absolute worst friendly fire incidents is still kept under wraps. Well, that remains one of the war's most fascinating mysteries. If this story gripped you, so like the video and subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. Thanks for watching.